because I was hearing myself like 4 times. Okay, so I get to deal with it. I can do that. All right, so I'm calling to order the Manchester Community School Board of Trustees, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Everyone is present with the exception of Mr. Bedke. There's a list of emergency additions. Are there any other additions to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to add a item of discussion about moving the board meeting times to 6 p.m.
Sure thing. Discussion information, would that be under discussion? Or
So it'd be a 6.7.
6.7. We don't need to take a vote on that, right, Mr. France? We can just discuss that. Okay.
Just add it. I would put it at 3.6 though.
3.6? Sure thing.
Reorganization.
Oh, okay.
All right, so I'm adding the addition of 3.6, a discussion of board meeting times. Does anybody else have any additions?
No Heartland. No Heartland.
Oh, there's no Heartland update? Okay, so we will remove the Heartland update, which is 6.6. Any other additions, deletions to the agenda? All right. Then let's go ahead and move forward. There's 2 public comment times. So there's a public comment time right now on agenda items. And I just would like to make it known that we're going to be giving a work session update during the discussion items later in the agenda. So if you're here to share your thoughts regarding that topic, you may want to see if your questions are answered during that time, because there will be another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. We did ask that people would sign up to speak, so if you've not done so yet, if you would please, if you want to speak, if you would do that. And just because of time, those will be $1.4. Did I skip it? Oh, I skipped it. Let's go back. I'm so sorry. FFA, I did not mean to skip you. I was just really looking forward to it later on. Okay, so recognition. Manchester Junior Senior High School FFA State Soil Judging Competition.
Check. It's a little low. All right, so we've got a group of students here we're very proud of. It's a program that's just had a lot of well, not just tradition, but also quite a bit of success over the years. And so recently, it's been about a month now, hasn't it? A month ago, these students were involved with the FFA State Crops, Entomology, and Forestry Competition, the state level results. Okay, these are all the schools in the state. The high school entomology team finished 6th at state. I mean, that's all the schools, 6th at state. The high school forestry team finished 7th. The junior high forestry team finished 6th at state. And I think some of these students are here, but Haley Crom was 10th as an individual. The junior high crops team was 6th at state. Josh Steely was 10th as an individual. And then a high school crops team, and I think there's quite a few of those students that are here with us tonight. the high school crops team finished first, fourth, and fifth at state. They took 3 out of the top 5 places in the state. Aaron McKee was first overall in the state. Elizabeth Brown was fourth. Caden Markham was sixth. Sheila Winger was seventh. And Erica Ortiz was eighth individually. And we have some of these students here, and they're going to talk a little bit about their competition. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Hi, my name is Erica Ortiz, and we are a few of some of the FFA state crops team.
Hi, I'm Sheila Winger, and so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do in the crops contest. So it's divided into 3 main categories of grain grading, a knowledge exam, and identification of seeds, plant mounts, and disease and damage. In the grain grading portion, we grade 4 samples of corn, 2 samples of soybeans, and 2 samples of wheat. As we prepare for the contest, we have a grain grading guide with all the information regarding grain grading, and we have to memorize that information. The better that we know the information, the easier it is to grade the grain at contest. Some of the things that we look for in the samples are foreign material, heat damage, commercially objectionable foreign odor, and insects or weevils which would cause the sample to be infested. The samples are classified as US number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and if they don't meet the requirements for the US numbers 1 through 5, then it's classified as a US sample grade, which makes it not human consumable. For the knowledge portion, the knowledge exam portion, there's 40 multiple choice questions, and we have an hour to complete the test, and we use our corn and soybean field guide, which I brought with me today. And this guide has a lot of the information that the questions are asking, so we find the information and then we can answer the question based off of that information.
Hi, I'm Alexia Hensley, and I'm going to be talking about the identification portion of our contest. This portion is worth 500 out of the 1,000 points, and in this process of the contest, we learned to identify 70 plant mounts, 70 seeds, and 25 disease and damages. The plant mounts are both crops and weeds, and today I brought 2 to show you. This one is canola, and this is orchard grass, which are both crops. And I also brought fall panicum and orchard grass, or common lamb's quarters, which is weeds. The seeds that we identify correspond to these plants, and today I brought corn and soybeans. For disease and damages, we identify common disease and damages that affect the plants that are local to our area, and today I brought an example of northern corn leaf blight.
Hi, my name is Emily Stamble, and I'm what you would consider a non-traditional ag student and FFA member. I didn't grow up on your family-owned farm or come from any other agricultural-based background. I took an ag class my 7th grade year, and it opened my perspective to a whole new field. My friend Alexia asked me to join crops with her and to come to a practice in 8th grade. I was like, why not? I'll just see what it's like. And little did I know that first practice would change my perspective. This is my 4th year as a state crops judger, and every year my score as well as that of my team continues to improve. I'm so excited and proud to be on such a successful team and chapter. Because of crops, I decided to participate in other FFA events like leadership and to be a part of the first ever floriculture team and trunk or treat that we hosted for all MES 2nd graders. Through all of these activities, I have learned many skills and made memories that will last a lifetime. Thank you for your time.
We're going to go ahead and have the other 3 introduce themselves and how many years they've been at FFA, and then we'll kind of come across you guys and just have them shake your hands on the way through.
So I'm Maddie Eldridge. I'm a freshman, and I've been judging crops for 2 years now.
I'm Caitlin Gish. I'm also a freshman, and I've been judging for 2 years.
Hi, I'm Vincent Croft, and this is my first year of crops.
Can we please give the students a round of applause for all their hard work? Thank you. And students, we'd love to shake your hands. If you could make your way this direction, we'd love to be able to do that and congratulate you personally. Great job. Keep up the good work. So proud of you guys. Good job. Congratulations. Very proud of you. You guys keep up the good work. You're wonderful. Congratulations. Good job.
You did a nice job presenting.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much for being here. I just really appreciate Dr. Grimeau having kids and being able to hear what's happening. I'm sorry that I skipped that. Thank you for redirecting me. All right, so now we are at the hearing of the patrons' comments. So there's a couple times that you can speak. We are asking that people hold their comments to 2 minutes tonight, and we're not going to be sharing turns. So you have 2 minutes, and you can say what you want, and then we'll go from there. So does anybody want to speak right now? Yeah.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, just a minute, Mr. Gephardt. Are you timing? Mr. France?
I got a stopwatch. I can time
okay.
too.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Markham.
When does my time start?
Go ahead.
Right now? In regards to 6.4 on the agenda, I might have an old agenda. I just printed it off the website. But in regards to the special work session, I just had a few questions. Who enacted the practice of allowing transgenders to use whatever bathroom that they identify with?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Gephardt. So the comments time, it's for us to hear. So,
when do you answer? I thought this time is a time that you answered at the beginning, and at the end you just heard public comments.
No. When we hear from the public, we listen, and then we will be addressing things during the work session update.
Okay, so you never respond at all?
Mr. France, I don't know how to answer Mr. Gephardt.
I wouldn't say at all, but there's no requirement.
There's no requirement. They can't hear you. Could you speak in your mic, please?
I wouldn't say not at all, but there's no requirement to.
There's no requirement to. Okay. So some questions I have for you. Who enacted the practice of the transgender using whatever bathroom? The students that identify being transgender. My second question, did anyone on the board know that this was done in secret or in private? And thirdly, who invited the Bowen Center kink sex therapist that spoke to the community on December 18th and spoke about the many, many genders and that doctors assign sex and they're wrong most of the time? I'm just curious if that was a board decision or if that was an individual decision. I think the community really wants to know the answers to these questions. These are some pretty big questions that we need to know. We need to know. We need answers because we are the taxpayers and we pay your salaries, and the board answers to the taxpayers and the superintendent answers to the board. And we would just like some transparency, and we just need some answers to what's been going on here. There's a lot of things that have been done inappropriately, and we just need some answers. So I don't know if you might have time today. They're pretty simple questions to answer, or maybe you can respond at another time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to offer a response? No?
No, I'd just say this, that, we are where we are, and you want somebody to blame, or, if that's what this is about, look, I'll take responsibility for all of it, to be honest with you. But I know one thing is this, we're going to focus on safety and privacy in a good learning environment. And really, I'd like to keep the halls of these establishments where these kids learn hollow to social issues. And so I think as a board, I may be speaking out of turn here, but we're going to look forward, and we're going to find an amicable solution, that basically, not for one person or another, but to solve this thing. I think Rick's going to do a statement later, but just to address your concerns, we talk about this, who really made the decisions, is being addressed, but at the same token, we kind of are where we are, and I think the best thing to do is move forward and just to keep the kids in mind. And I just had a group of neighbors out at the house, talking about this, and I think, the one thing I say to them is, again, the scope of this thing, we're not here to tell all of you how to live your lives or what you do or who's right or who's wrong. The only thing we can do is really focus on safety, privacy, and the highest quality education environment we can get that engages these kids and, teaches them to work together, So it's been through the referendum in the community. Now we're kind of into this, so I don't know where we're going, with this conflict thing. So, but I'm hoping, through this, we're learning. We're a new board. We've got a new superintendent. I mean, none of us are perfect. I'm not. I make mistakes every day. I sin every day. I wish I was perfect, but we're not. And I think the thing to think about in this is we are where we are, and what we have to do is move forward together, And I know there's a solution. There's a solution that's going to, we're working on that right now. So I just don't want to leave you, I don't want to leave you hanging there with your questions. But I don't think placing blame right now. We've got to do that. We've got to do that with each other. But I don't think that's the ticket for getting where we want to go together. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Very well said.
All right. Any other comments at the beginning? Okay. Oh, I'm confused on my agenda. I'm sorry. I have to get back. Okay. Oh. All right. So we're at item 3, conflict of interest statements. Mr. France?
So every year, the board, if there is any potential conflict of interest, there is a conflict of interest form that is a disclosure statement that's signed. Just so the board is aware, Mike Hensley is the only one that I suggested that would even need to sign one, so he's submitted that, and the board just needs to show that that's accepted in the minutes, and then I send it to the clerk of the county and State Board of Accounts.
So do we vote?
Nope.
Okay.
You just show that it's accepted. There's no vote.
Election of officers, Dr. Grimeau.
All right, we are going to ask for nominations for the board president for this year of 2020. Do I have any nominations?
I nominate Ruth Ayers.
Do we have any other nominations? Okay, we're going to close those nominations. All in favor of Ruth Ayers, please raise your hand. Looks like there are
Do you need us to?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. So, do you need those names, Missy? Do you need names? Got them? Okay. All right.
I abstain.
Looks like, oh, you're abstaining? Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry. 1 abstain, which is Mr. Turflinger. So, it looks like we now have our board president for 2020, so Mrs. Ayers will be taking over the rest of the nominations.
Oh, okay, so we switch right back.
Right.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm asking for nominations for vice president for 2020.
I'll nominate Mr. Flack.
Okay, it's a nomination for Mr. Flack. Do you accept?
Yes.
Any other nominations? All right, then, all of those in favor of seeing Mr. Flack for vice president? All right, so that carries 6-0. I'm taking nominations for secretary.
I'll nominate Mr. Epsiset.
Do you accept?
Sure.
I'll nominate Mr. Turflinger.
Do you accept?
Sure.
Any other nominations? All right, then it's not a versus. It's just like if you're in favor of. Does that make sense? I think it's if you're in favor, like we're voting in favor of. So in favor of Mr. Esposito. In favor of Mr. Turflinger. All right, so it's hanging 3-3, which means we just open nominations again. Okay? Are there nominations for secretary?
I'll nominate Mr. Turflinger.
Do you accept? All right, so there's a nomination for Mr. Turflinger. Nominations for anyone else?
I'll nominate Mr. Epsiset, please.
And then there's a nomination for Mr. Esposito. Mr. Francis, is how you want us to do it?
Yep, that's how you have to do it. Somebody's got to get 4.
Okay.
Are we getting
Just
takeout?
close nominations again. And
Are there any other nominations?
I'll nominate Mr. Hensley.
Okay, so now we have a nomination for Mr. Hensley. Do you accept? It's going to
Yes.
get okay, so this is great.
Would it be easier? I can withdraw or not accept
Okay,
my nomination.
all right, so-
I'm happy with.
Okay.
So-
So now we have Mr. Hensley or Mr. Turflinger. Is that fair? That you accepted? All right, so all those in favor?
No, I'm going to withdraw. If Rick's withdrawing, I'm withdrawing. So you got one choice right there.
I just don't like being a laughing stock. So,
it's-
Mr. France, I'm unsure. Do I?
Yeah, if you
So, okay, so then the nominations are still open. So
ask for any further nominations, and then
Are
if
there any
nobody-
further nominations? All right, then I'm going to close nominations, and we're going to, all those in favor of Mr. Turflinger.
There we go.
Motion carries, or seating of the officer carries. So Mr. Turflinger will be secretary for 2020. Considerations of appointments for 2020, corporation treasurer.
That would be Mr. Markham.
And you accept?
Yes, sir.
And then I'm going to go through all of these, right? All right. All those in favor of Mr. Markham as corporation treasurer? Opposed? Did you vote?
No,
Abstain?
no.
Okay.
What's the process was it Kendra last year?
No, it was myself, and then Kendra would be the assistant treasurer
Okay.
for the
I
next
couldn't
one.
remember.
All right. So that's 5.
I have a question for Mr. France. We got a purchasing agent coming up. Can the treasurer and the purchasing agent be the same person?
Yes. Because two very different statutes, but they're not mutually exclusive. So, yeah, the treasurer just can't be the superintendent or a board member.
Thank you.
Do we need to revote, or are we okay?
I don't think did we vote? Oh, yes, we did. Yeah, we're okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'm sorry, I forgot about that because it's not starred. All right. Corporation assistant treasurer?
That would be Mrs. Kendra Miller.
All right. Any discussion about that?
Oh, I have a question. She's already submitted her retirement papers, right?
Yeah, not till August of 2020.
So what
sh-
do we do then?
We would just reissue a new assistant treasurer at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, I think it was 6-0. Corporation Attorney?
Mr. Mark France.
Mr. France, any discussion?
Just for clarification, name the firm Downs, Tandy, Petrini rather than myself individually.
Name who?
The
I'm sorry.
firm, my firm name, Downs, Tandy, and Petrini.
Oh, downstanding.
The
okay.
law office,
All right.
rather than me individually.
Okay.
Any discussion? In favor? Opposed? 6-0. Legislation Liaison? Mr. Hensley, did you do that?
Yeah,
Do you want to do that again?
sure. Do we need to vote on it?
Yep.
I think so. That's why we're doing it. Anyone else? Any discussion? Vote? Favor? In favor? Opposed?
Raise your hand.
Abstaining? I don't know how to count your vote. Are you abstaining?
Yeah, I'm not going to vote for myself. Yeah.
All right, then it is 5-0-1. Heartland Career Center representative, Mr. Turflinger, will you continue doing that? Any discussion? I appreciate the passion that you bring back from that. So thank you for doing that again. All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, 5-0-1. All right, the North Manchester Redevelopment Commission member, was that?
I believe
That's
Mr.
you, right,
Shaw.
Mr. Shaw? Do you want to continue doing that?
Sure.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All right then, all in favor? Opposed? 6-0, thank you. You did vote? Okay. North Manchester Parks and Recreation Committee. Was that you, Mr. Esposat? Are you interested in doing that again?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0, thank you. Oh, sorry, 6-0. The designated newspaper for 2020?
I'd like to nominate the paper of Wabash. Reason being, they changed several months ago. Everybody in the school district gets it now. They don't have to subscribe, but yet the ads still have to be paid for, which I think meets the law. We can't use a free ad in a weekly paper, but we can use, as long as we're paying for the ad, correct?
The part about the cost has to be whether or not it's a cost to the receiver of the paper, not whether or not it costs us to place the ad.
No, I'm not.
I think the newspaper we designate still has to be within the corporation limits, so I don't think, just because we receive the paper, because their office is outside of our corporation limits, I think we have to name the news journal.
Can we do both? Reason being, they cover all 2,700 households and all 9,000 residents of both townships, and when we're putting legal notices in, I think we need to make sure, because the circulation of the local paper is, I don't know, around 1,200. I don't have a problem doing both, but I just think we need to get those notices out there in front of everybody.
I'd say as long as we have one that is within the corporation limits, we're okay.
I think I made that a motion, didn't I?
So,
Well, typically, it's been the North Manchester News Journal, is that correct, Mr. Markham? Okay.
My motion is to put it in both papers.
okay, so to put it in both papers?
Yes.
And can we name 2 papers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is it one company or are they 2 companies now with one owner?
I believe it's 2 separate companies, one owner.
Okay.
One parent company, I guess. I'm not entirely sure.
They're subsidiaries, I think.
Other discussion?
Just, we could opt in to, once we learn more about who, how this would work, can we name my question would be, can we just name the News Journal and then just opt in if you want the notices in an additional paper?
You could do that too, yeah.
So, yeah, I guess my point would be that would, to me, make the most sense, to keep it as one paper. Do you know the cost of posting it in the paper?
It just depends on the ad size and words.
Well, the sense of that is it's a public notice. So you got circulation increase, it's a free paper, and it's delivered for free. So I would say that would be the common sense side of the request Dave's making, I think. Right, Dave?
No, that's a good point.
So any more discussion? So we're asking to designate the paper of Wabash and the News Journal. Is that correct? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Consideration of board members' compensation.
Yes, you have an option to keep it as is of what you've been receiving right now, or you could change that if you want to do like something different with additional meetings or something. So. Oh, it is board policy that way? Okay. So keep
we
it
get
as
paid extra for
each
special meeting.
Additional meeting, yes.
I would make a motion that we keep it the same.
Any discussion about that? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, consent items. Oh, 3.6, I'm so sorry, Mr. Shaw. All right, board meeting times. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I would just propose moving the time to 6 o'clock as opposed to 5:30. I have heard that it's easier for members of the public to get here a little bit later for those that work out of town. I also know there's a couple board members that would make these meetings a little easier.
Any comments, discussion?
I'd make a motion to support it.
All right, all those in favor? Opposed? 6-0. Thank you. Now consent items. I believe that we usually do the minutes, claims, and grants all as one. Is that acceptable? So we need a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Flack. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Mr. Hensley. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. Did we get that rental agreement moved off, or is that not part of the consent agenda?
Which rental agreement are you
The
speaking
one
of?
for Rick's wife.
Tri-Kappa
believe-
Barbecue.
I believe it's down in recommendations for approval. Are we talking about the Tri-Kappa one?
Yes.
Yes, it's down under recommendations.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So a motion by Mr. Flack and a second by Mr. Hensley. More discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, we have a list of, again, any generous donations. Is there anyone who would like to read that list of donations?
Sure, I'll do it for you. Okay, we got $9.47 for the Squire Team Production Services from the Film Club, various donors. $125 for the Manchester Choir Program from Manchester University, $200 to the Junior High Student Activities Fund from McKee Mortuary. We got $20 to the National Junior Honor Society Program from an anonymous donor, $50 donation to the Junior Honor Society Program from an anonymous donor, $100 donation to the Angel Tree from an anonymous donor, $1,000 donation to the choir program from an anonymous donor, another $1,000 donation to the drama program from the anonymous donor, another $1,000 to the Science Olympiad program from an anonymous donor, $5.16 to the Squire Team Production Services Film Club from various donors in cash, $75 donation to the Squire Store from Tara Peden, donation of $100 for the Canvas, the Town Food Pantry from an anonymous donor, donation of $50 to the Junior High Activities Fund from Kent and Arvida Trickle, a donation of $500 to the volleyball program from an anonymous donor, a donation of $500 to Manchester Girls Basketball Program from an anonymous donor, another $500 donation to the FFA program from an anonymous donor, another $500 donation to the National Junior Honor Society from an anonymous donor, $1,119 to MES for the firstbook.org from Pizza Hut, donation of $475 for the student lunch debt from David Dowd and Kim Ebersole. That was to pay off various students' school lunch debt. That was a pretty big one right there. That's it.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second.
To accept those?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll move to accept.
I'll second it.
And a second so a motion by Mr. Esposito and a second by Mr. Turflinger. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? 6-0. Thank you. Personnel. Can we do all that together? Resignations and employment? All right. And the facility? So we can do all three of those? All right, so the personnel, resignations, employment, and facility rentals, I'd like to group those together. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Flack, and a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Mr. Esposito. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Recommendations for approval. 5.1, Policy 3200, Training and Health Precautions for Communicable Diseases. This is a second reading. I believe I'm looking for a motion of approval.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Esposito. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Are you in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Policy 5210, Children's Internet Protection, the second reading. We're looking for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Motion for Mr. Flack, and I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Esposito. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Least restrictive environment, policy 5520, the second reading.
So moved.
Motion for Mr. Flack.
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Esposito. Any discussion? All those in favor? I don't know who's in favor. I couldn't see. Motion carries 6-0. 5.4, so purchases and supplies material, policy 6220, and the administrative guideline 6220, second reading. A motion.
Did this one end up having the revisions? I think, Raj, you had some revisions
Yes,
at the end there.
yes.
So this has got his revisions?
That's correct.
Okay, so moved.
The motion by Mr. Flack,
I got a question on this guideline here. I thought we said that they were gonna get them. Hang on, let me. 25 wheels, okay, never mind, we're good. It's in the second sentence is what I was looking for. We're good.
Hold on a second. We also need to, were we going to put a revision on this somewhere? Is it the date at the bottom?
The date of, the adoption date, yes.
Okay.
Is it on the bottom there?
It's on the paper copy here, it's not
Well, I
on
just
the
want to
slide.
make sure we have revision control on these things.
Yeah,
before
we're
we-
actually, and if there's any in a code or anything, we're citing that at the bottom as well, so.
so I think I'm waiting for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. So motion by Mr. Flack and a second by Mr. Shaw. Is there discussion? Mr. Turflinger, are you okay with that? Or do you have some questions?
This thing has gone back and forth. I'm just wondering if we need to put a definition of an emergency in there. Just a one line, anything that's gonna stop school from happening tomorrow, sewer backup, whatever it is. A blizzard, do we need to identify what an emergency is?
It's a fair question. Some thoughts about that?
Yeah, we talked about it, and it was the definition of emergency is anything that stops school or call it safety or harm. So I'd kind of disagree, we discussed that over and over again, and that, so if you want to hold it up for one more, we can do that and put that in there, but.
Couldn't we just add it and approve it? Just put that definition there on the guideline.
If it's the guideline, yeah.
So you're suggesting adding it to the policy, or?
Adding to the guideline the definition of an emergency, just a simple sentence that says anything that's going to stop school from happening tomorrow.
Can we do that, Mark?
Yeah, with the guideline you can, the policy would take another reading.
That's why, perfectly said.
So we can add it tonight to the guideline?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
I'm fine with it.
Can we vote, or
So we just
is
need
there
to
more
vote.
Do we need to
discussion?
say what that is here, or exactly?
Yeah, will you restate what you wanted that to say?
Emergency is defined as anything that's going to stop school from happening tomorrow. And just for clarification, if lightning hits the football field lights, we don't have to go out and spend $50,000 before next Friday. We talk about it, get estimates and this and that, but if it's a sewer backup or 3 feet of snow in the parking lot, we got to spend the money in open school.
What if there's an emergency in the summer? That would be my only concern, if that's the definition. What if there'd be an emergency where
So
the school is being flooded? I don't know, I'm just throwing anything out.
That would, if it's school's not in session, that's when you just have an emergency board meeting. You can do that in under 24 hours.
I would leave it a little more vague there, just because I don't think we can think of all the different emergencies that might happen. So I'm afraid of tying hands, and I think
I mean, obviously, if
We-
it was in the summertime, there's water running down the driveway or the sewer's backed up in the building, yeah, we're gonna call that an emergency.
right, but to write all that in this is kind of hard.
I get it, I'm just saying,
That's the circle we got in when we had the
Yeah.
discussion in the past, so that's kind of what I was saying. We had this discussion, and it kind of led to a circle of how exactly do you want to define that. So I thought that was at the discretion of the superintendent is where we left that.
And I like how Raji put in there, because he did adjust this a little bit, modify it, and it says exactly where time does not permit. And that encompasses a lot of situations.
That's true.
I would leave it as written.
But we can't
That's-
amend the guideline, though. I mean, we can have a discussion, but I don't think it's the time and place to define emergency right now because we spun that one already, so.
Okay, so I'm sorry, can somebody help me what the motion is?
You just need to vote.
But isn't the motion to make?
I'll
the-
just withdraw the motion, we had a discussion, if we don't wanna put it in at this time, we can always bring it back up to policy later.
Okay, so will you make a motion? Do we have a motion?
I had made one, I'm withdrawing it, so we're.
Okay, will you
on
make
to-
a new one?
So we're back to the original motion.
Oh, the original motion, which was Mr. Shaw?
It was seconded by me.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. So a motion by Mr. Flack and a second by Mr. Shaw. All those in favor? Opposed? 6-0, thank you. Okay, transfer from education fund to operations fund.
Last year, the board approved a resolution for us to transfer, which was about 20% of our education fund to our operations fund to help cover those costs of utilities, custodial, maintenance, central office, what all used to be in the old general fund, which they moved to operations now, to help offset those costs and pay those particular items. So last year, we were transferring about $196,000 a month from education to operations. I'm asking for a new resolution to transfer $125,000 a month initially here, which would put us at about 15% of our education fund to operations as opposed to the 20% that we were doing last year. The state of Indiana is really encouraging school districts to be at that 15% or lower threshold, and so that's where we would like to start and see where that takes us, and hopefully we'll be able to cover all of our expenses with that in addition to our tax monies in our operations fund for the year. So that's what this resolution would be, just asking for your approval. We can always come back and adjust those amounts up or down if we need to.
I would make a motion to approve the resolution.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Turflinger and a second by Mr. Shaw. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Approval of Heather Winger for Public Library Board Member.
This is just an appointment we have to make each year.
Is there a motion?
Is she doing it now?
I am not sure about that. She just submitted her name to us and told her that we needed to approve her.
Well, bless her, I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hensley. A second by Mr. Flack. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Permission to advertise tax anticipation warrant.
Again, last year, I asked for the board's permission to do a tax anticipation warrant. And last year we did $1 million. I'm asking for $800,000 this year. This helps with our cash flow in our operations fund until we're able to get those tax distribution settlements in June and December of each year. Manchester Community Schools has traditionally done this tax anticipation over the last 10 to 12 years, if not longer. So again, this is asking for your permission to advertise for $800,000. This would run in the paper for 2 consecutive weeks, and then we would take bids from outside banks who may be interested in providing that. Around February 5th, we would collect those bids and then award a winner, obviously with the lowest interest rate possible. So asking for your permission to advertise for that.
I would make a motion to advertise for the tax warrant.
Second.
Is there discussion? No? I thought somebody was saying something.
You seconded.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Turflinger and a second by Mr. Flack. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The 2020-2021 annual participation commitment.
This is a food to school cooperative that we are part of through our food service department, and it's just an annual commitment that we would like to be able to stay part of that co-op. And we're asking for permission for us to continue that partnership.
I have a question. Is this the one that Becky did last?
Yes.
That's correct.
This co-op, this current school year is the first year we've been in this co-op. Becky couldn't be here tonight, but is very happy with the services provided with this co-op and the pricing that they've been able to get, and would like to continue for another year with your approval.
Do you have any idea how much money we save by using it?
I don't. Becky would definitely know that better than I would right now.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion by Mr. Turflinger and a second by Mr. Esposito. Do you have discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Um, 5.9, approval of Manchester Youth Cheerleading Clinic and performance.
Move to approve.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second from a motion by Mr. Esposito and a second by Mr. Flack. Is there discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. 5.10, an unpaid leave. Is there a motion?
Go ahead. You go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Flack and a second by Mr. Turflinger. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries 6-0. Approval of the 2020-2021 calendar.
Yes, we brought this in November. However, we had a little bit of discrepancy, so we wanted to bring it back and make sure that we were clear that MLK Day will not be a snow makeup day, but we added an additional day at the end of the year with moving the teacher half day back just one day to accommodate for those makeup days.
Supported by the MTA?
Correct. He's out there somewhere. There they are, thumbs up. I saw them. Come in.
Is there a motion?
I'll move.
And a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Esposito and a second by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-1. Recommendation for approval of facility rental by the Tri-Kappa Chicken Barbecue.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Flack and a second by Mr. Turflinger. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain?
Yep.
I didn't catch your vote, Mr. Hensley.
Yes.
Favor? Okay. So 5-0-1. Employment of Heather Turflinger as a basketball coach.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Esposito and a second by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? right, discussion. We're looking at a few policies. Food service staff code of conduct is a first reading policy.
This is just a conflict of interest policy for working with vendors to ensure that our food staff, service staff is conducting themselves appropriately. Any questions? Okay.
Motion to approve policy 3210.
I think it's just a discussion because it's first reading.
Sorry.
But I would appreciate, like, just knowing, is there anything that you want changed or you feel comfortable with this one? Anybody else? Okay. And the way these work, right, Mr. Hensley, they're coming from you, from the policy committee?
That's correct.
Any other comments? Things you want changed? All right. Then internal controls, policy 6230. It's a first reading.
And this one is just making sure that we are handling our finances correctly and that we have the right controls in place to make sure that no one is doing anything inappropriately. Mr. Markham, do you have anything to add to that?
I would add that our secretarial staff in our offices, as well as anyone else who may handle money, as well as central office, we do have to watch a video yearly on internal controls, which we are currently in the process of doing this week as well. And I'm also working on updating our internal controls manual that I will bring to you as well at some point.
Would you refresh my memory? All the office staff, anybody handles money, they're bonded, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, your silence say you're okay with this?
It's good to me.
Mr. Turflinger, are you, anything to discuss? Okay. Policy 6240, Federal Grants and Awards Administration is a first reading.
This one is quite a long one. It's basically, again, internal controls, and it's specifically for federal grants. And all of the, I guess, items that we need to follow by federal grants to ensure that we are doing all of our internal controls and we're following all of the guidelines by the federal government. Any questions on that?
How are grants handled?
Our grant process, anyone that wants to apply for a grant will go through Mrs. Janegi, and I have that all written down because she does this all. Is she here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you are, right in front of me. Of course. If I get something wrong, please correct me. And she reviews all of those just for requirements to ensure that we would not be obligated, like any matching funds or anything like that, that would, or sustainability pieces that we could not financially support before they move forward with a grant. And the only matching grant we know that we have is our safety one, which is actually put in the budget each year. If there is anyone that would come up that, you know, we would look for some outside sources first before we'd ever come to the board and see if we can, you know, support something like that. But at this point, from my understanding, we do not have any of those matching grants.
So we have a protocol or a policy or
We just have a process that we have used to
Okay.
apply for grants.
Okay, so my question to you is if the lady on your left says she wants to apply for a $100,000 grant from 80/20 and the guy on your right says he wants to and he's going to the same group, what do you do?
Mrs. Janegi, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to ask you to go to the mic for the record.
It doesn't matter.
Any of them.
Anytime there's a grant request, we don't look at that just as, like myself and one other person. If there are multiple people interested in it, we would get together and see if there's a conflict of interest, if it aligns with our mission and vision. We also look at, what the Department of Education is funding and kind of their focuses before we would make any decisions. And anything large like that, we would definitely want to bring to the board first.
Okay, so let's revise it down. Say you got 3 teachers in Dr. Lippy's building that all want to apply for a $5,000 grant from the Community Foundation. Does one take precedence over the other, or do you let all 3 go to the well?
If it's a competitive grant, in the past, we've not discouraged people from applying unless there's a conflict of interest, at least to my knowledge. Anything like that where there's multiple awardees, I would say go for it.
My concern is this, if we apply for a grant and we don't end up using it, it makes us look bad the next time. Or if we have, going back to the same well too many times.
Right, and we have had discussions about that. We try not to do a lot of same application type grants. And I think we've pretty much limited, like if you're referring to the Community Foundation, we don't tap into that as much as maybe we had in the past, maybe 10 years ago. I think people just kind of applied a lot to the Community Foundation. I don't believe we're doing that quite as much.
Yeah, and I don't mean to just pick on them. They just popped into the top of my head. I just don't want to, we don't want to dry up the well or ask for something that we can't use and then it not.
And often when it comes to grant applications, a lot of people welcome a conversation before an application is ever submitted so that you can kind of get a feel for whether it's a good fit for the school and a good fit for the organization that's funding it as well. So those conversations are usually had before a grant application is ever submitted. Now, a lot of grants come with a webinar prior to application. And so again, we're watching those, we're learning about the stipulations within the grant and whether we're willing to commit to those things before we apply. So we try to preload our decisions and not have to kind of backpedal after the thought.
So what I'm hearing you say is you have a conversation, but there isn't really a written process. And correct me if I'm wrong. Are you signing off on these before they're sent in, or do you review them and then Teresa signs off? I'm just trying to understand the process here.
Most of the time for the federal grants, if I'm applying, it takes the superintendent's signature to sign off on those, and so it's reviewed by both of us, and those are pretty straightforward. A lot of the smaller grants, a building level principal might look at that as well to make sure that it lines up with what they want for their building.
Okay, but if the principal signs off, does it still come to you?
Most of the time, but I wouldn't say 100% of the time. I think that's something we've talked about that we need to maybe get shored up a little bit more so that they will all run through me. There's a few small ones, like less than $1,000 that I think have been approved that I hadn't seen, but nothing major.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And for the board, the reason I asked all those questions, at Heartland, in the last 6 years, they brought in $2.1 million in grants. In the last 3 years, they brought in $750,000. And I don't want to stifle anybody out here that wants to apply for a grant. I encourage you, but I just want to make sure that we're not going to the same well too many times, something like that. So I guess maybe this is something, I don't think we maybe need a policy, but maybe we need a guideline on how we get there. because the board down there approves everything. I don't think we want to take that on. I personally don't think we need to take it on, but I think we need to have something down as a guideline going forward to where the superintendent knows exactly who's asking for what and where, you know, because a lot of times, listening to Mr. Hobbs down there, if we got 3 teachers that want the same thing, there might be alternative funding over here, so we go for this grant for a little more and don't apply for these two. So I'd just like to see us work on that for 2020.
Yeah, and maybe a little reporting mechanism or just some type of chart. Right.
We can certainly do that.
So, Mr. Turflinger, you're no longer concerned about this policy? Like, it's fine as written, or are there still some things to consider?
This one primarily is following the law for federal grants. It piqued my curiosity because I've never seen a grant come to our board as for an approval, yet down there they come almost every month. So that sparked my question.
Actually, we checked on that today, and Jeremy can probably tell you a little bit more about that.
You have approved grants, but typically you're approving it after the grant has been awarded, once we know the financial amount. So then that's when it comes to you after the fact on that.
Any more discussion?
Teresa, could you put that on the agenda for the next policy committee meeting to have them discuss some kind of a guideline for that?
I certainly can, so I guess we can discuss it, but Ms. Denegi needs to be part of that discussion, so we'll make sure she's in it.
Well, if it's priority, I mean, I think we got a couple things going on that we better focus on this next meeting, so.
That's true. And I just received several more policies from ISBA that we'll have to look at as well, so yeah, we'll just have to prioritize that. Thank you.
It's good. No further discussion? No further discussion? Update on the December 18th special work session. I think there's a few different people who are speaking about this.
Yes, Mr. France is up, just to review what we did and what his
And
statement
I was asked to give just a very quick recap of the legal analysis that I provided, and this is going to be very quick. If anybody wants the full thing, go watch the YouTube video, and there's also a visual component so you don't have to hear me drone on. Missy, can you make that full screen? Should be a start presentation button somewhere. Okay, we'll just go with it. That's fine. So that's Title IX, basically no discrimination on the basis of sex in federal funding. And like I said, this is going to be an absolutely quick recap. So go ahead. All right. In addition to Title IX, there are regulations that have been passed that define what that means. So it kind of mirrors that, prohibits people from being subject to different rules, but it also is what allows for different restrooms and locker rooms and separate sports teams. In addition to that, there were Dear Colleague letters issued by the Department of Education, Department of Justice. The Obama administration issued one, and that's what started a lot of this, is that it said transgender students can use the bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity. The Trump administration withdrew that and said it's not consistent with the express language of Title IX. But that has, both of those things have created issues. Title IX and the federal regulations don't define what it means to be on the basis of sex. The Trump administration's withdrawal of the Obama administration letter also does not define what it means to be on the basis of sex. The withdrawal of the Obama administration also does not automatically say the opposite of what was withdrawn is true. So basically then we're left with the court decisions going through that. Those are the two main Indiana cases that we have to deal with, Whitaker and Evansville. Grimm, Bow Area Town, and Harris Funeral Homes, those are three other cases. They're not applicable to Indiana. They're from other circuits, but they're important to at least acknowledged. So Whitaker is the Seventh Circuit decision. Basically, school had a practice of prohibiting a transgender male student from using a male restroom. It allowed gender-neutral restrooms to be used. Students sued the school. Seventh Circuit upheld a preliminary injunction saying that policy violated Title IX. And that was based on PricewaterhouseCoopers under a sex stereotyping theory. Basically, a person doesn't conform to the stereotypes based on that person's sex. And that's just a quote that I stated during the presentation from that case. There's the Evansville case. Basically, same general thing. Or transgender student prohibited from using bathroom, sued the school, and this is different just because this deals with not only a preliminary injunction, but summary judgment was also granted. Basically, as a matter of law, the policy violated Title IX, and that case relied on the Seventh Circuit Whitaker's decision. The Grimm case, it's not applicable right now, but that's the most famous, or that's a case that got a lot of immediate media attention, but it's basically back through the district court. Although given other circumstances, it may come back up. It'll probably work its way back through the system, so just kind of keep that in mind. Boyertown is just a recent case from the Third Circuit. From the other view, non-transgender students sued the school for allowing transgender students to use the bathrooms. Third Circuit has basically said their arguments were not enough to find a violation of a constitutional right or harassment for a violation of Title IX. This is the actual important case that people should be looking at, EEOC versus RG and GR Harris Funeral Homes. This is a Title VII case. Title VII and Title IX are usually analyzed similarly by courts. So this is where an employee was fired by the employer when the employee said they were transgender. EEOC brought a lawsuit. It is now, or district court basically granted summary judgment for the employer. Sixth Circuit reversed, and now it's been taken up by the Supreme Court, which is why it's important. The Seventh Circuit case was denied review by the Supreme Court. The Boyertown, the Third Circuit case, was also denied review. So finally, the Supreme Court has taken up this. So it could either keep the law the way the Seventh Circuit has already found it to be, or it could reverse it entirely. So it's an incredibly important case to keep in mind. It should be decided before June because it's in this Supreme Court's term. Oral argument already happened back in October, so a decision could happen any day. We're just waiting to see what happens with that. This is new from the presentation, though, because I had a lot of requests for people to say, why didn't you consider these things? I did. The Alliance Defending Freedom and Child and Parental Rights Campaign both sent letters. It's important, though, to take into account when they make their arguments that the cases they cite apply to Indiana. The Alliance Defending Freedom letter did not cite any Indiana cases. It actually didn't cite anything past 2017, which the Seventh Circuit case, the Evansville case, the Boyertown case were all after 2017, so it's a little outdated, and again, none of the cases applied to Indiana. The Child and Parental Rights Campaign, the letter actually did a very good job of trying to analyze what was applicable to Indiana, so kudos to them, but ultimately their recommendation was against what the Seventh Circuit said, so I'm not sure what their real basis was for that. But yeah, any questions from the board? Again, real quick recap, didn't want to beat a dead horse.
Mark, one of the questions I continue to get asked is, it's not law.
Mm-hmm.
And when case law is not law, but case law, can you speak to why case law is law?
And I've seen a lot of statements about that too, and generally when I say it is law, I use a broad definition of the word law. Basically, law can be statutory law, case law, administrative law, regulatory law, common law. Don't get held up on that, though there's not much of it left. So when I say law, it includes all of those things, and I know a lot of people, when they say it's not law, they must be meaning it's not statutory law, which they are correct. Title IX, the express language, doesn't say anything about it. So it's just a difference in definition is what I am understanding, or I'm assuming. So they're saying it's not statutory law or regulatory law, which again, it's not, but they're excluding case law from the definition of the word law, and I'm including it, along with other things.
And so Title IX is very clear on what we have to follow to receive federal money.
No. Well, you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. If you do, and there are a lot of laws that deal with federal funding that if you violate, you could lose federal funding. Title IX is not unique in that realm. But it does, both Title IX and the regulations don't define what it means to be on the basis of sex. So that's where the courts have stepped in and kind of made the process more gray than it probably should be. And that's really based on that Price Waterhouse case from the Supreme Court, where it said on the basis of sex can include sex stereotyping claims. That was the case where a woman acted too masculine and was, I think, terminated or didn't get a promotion, and she brought a claim, and the Supreme Court said, yes, you can bring a claim because you act too masculine. So I can't say it's crystal clear.
Yes. Another question or comment I got a lot of is why were we not notified as a community that we had a student in our school system?
And I addressed that at the beginning of my presentation on the special meeting. Basically, FERPA privacy laws prevent us from disclosing information about specific students, even general information. It's because there's a federal FERPA and essentially an Indiana equivalent that we have to both accommodate, and the definition of what is an education record, that's what it protects the privacy of, is so broad it basically encompasses anything that includes a student.
Okay,
any information about a student.
Does that include board members?
No, it includes, you can't release it to the general public.
As a board member, how can I influence the Supreme Court?
Right.
Is there any way I can influence the Supreme Court?
As a citizen? You can write an amicus brief in any case that's there that they allow you to. Otherwise, the best bet is to contact your senators or congressmen.
So as our attorney, would you suggest that we wait for the courts, or that we should move ahead with some type of plan to resolve what's going on in the community over this?
Just knowing the makeup of the Supreme Court, it's changed a bit over the past few years. So the law that the Seventh Circuit that we're following right now that they've put forward, it could change completely between now and June. So we may take go down one road, and then I will say stop, we need to go down another, or I could say keep going, or there may be a third road that pops up out of nowhere. I can't say whether you should or shouldn't continue or do anything, but just know it's subject to change depending on what the Supreme Court decides.
And this really isn't to you, but whose role is safety and privacy and security in the school? I mean, the Supreme Court's got influence on us, but at the same time, I think there's things we can do to mitigate even the opportunity for difference. So
yeah, and it is the school's responsibility for privacy and safety, but there have been also cases that say there's limits on what school can even do. It has to basically comport with federal law, state law, constitution. It's not free will of you can do whatever you want. Okay.
Does the board have more questions? Do you have more questions, or are you good?
Well, so working sessions, is that coming up here?
Yeah, 6.5.
Okay. I'll hold off.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure that you know it's fine to ask questions. We have the time to do it. Do you have any more questions? If you don't, give me a sign. Move on. Do you have any more questions?
I think so.
What?
There's other statements to be made on that?
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Esposito has the statement for the board.
Yeah,
Right.
so this is a board statement. I appreciate the extra explanation tonight, Mark, and I think Mr. Hensley did a good job at the beginning of the meeting articulating some of these thoughts, but Just to reiterate, this is a statement from the board. We are currently considering the best way to ensure the safety and privacy of all students at MCS. It will take us some time to navigate through the process. Our committees are currently working on some proposals that the board will discuss.
Okay, and then I just want to say a few words about the safety and privacy of our students. We are committed to maintaining a safe and private environment for all of our students and will accommodate any student who is uncomfortable with any situation by providing an alternative facility to use. We offer any of the following options: escorts, adult monitors, single stalls, and an option to change of clothing for gym classes. All they have to do is talk to their gym teacher and they would not have to change for gym, but there are a few stipulations on that and they will work with us. If any student needs additional accommodations, they may see their building principal or guidance counselor for any other possible options. Additionally, we have the gender support plan process in place for students to work with counselors and principals if they feel they need gender diverse accommodations. They must meet with the counselor, principal, and the student's parents for consideration of restroom, locker room choices. Parental approval is required to finalize this process. Any student who does not go through this process and chooses to use the restroom other than one that matches their biological sex will be disciplined. We are working towards providing other options as recommended by those participating in small groups during the work session, as well as numerous community members. Our facility and finance committee met this last week with an architect, and they will be discussing these options next. And I'm just going to turn that over to this committee, and they will share with you what their research has been.
Okay, so the Finance and Facilities Committee met on January 9th at MES to discuss and gather information for bathroom renovations to accommodate all students. On that committee is myself, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Turflinger, Mr. Markham, and Dr. Gameau. We had Dana Wanamaker from Barton Cove, Vilma, and Jack Rupley also joined us this committee on January 9th. Together, we walked through the bathrooms and discussed possible configurations, cost, and timelines for renovations. I think it's to be noted that it was identified in 2017 with our audit that MIS and MES restrooms needed upgrades and to be in compliance for handicap accessibility. Floor-to-ceiling petitions were also discussed, as well as ventilation, sprinkler systems to accommodate the changes. Mr. Wanamaker also wanted to state that since that audit in 2017 and the bid that was given to renovate, we could easily see a 30% increase in cost. The committee will continue to gather information in our attempt to accommodate all students, and Mr. Wanamaker will have an estimate for us once we decide when we're going to have a public work session, and then he'll have his information that evening on cost. Thank you.
I had a couple of emails, and I know you said gym class. That also includes swimming, right? The alternate facilities changing.
I believe they've already actually, a lot of parents have worked with Mr. Baldwin on that. Do you want to speak to that real quick?
I hope you don't mind that I picked it up, but yeah, thanks, Randy. Yeah, currently our sixth graders at MIS are completing their swim week at the Strauss Peabody facility. Worked with parents that had concerns pertaining to the facilities where the students would be changing. Those familiar with the Strauss Peabody swim facility, there are locker rooms, there are also family changing stations. I worked closely with our staff members to make sure that any student that would like to change in an alternate facility would be given the opportunity to do so, regardless of how long it took. We have adequate supervision in both the men's and women's locker rooms that consists of Strauss Peabody staff members, MIS staff members, and also junior, senior high school students that are helping facilitate the swim lessons who are members of our junior, senior high school swim team. I myself have been out there to supervise how this goes. I'm happy with the amount of supervision that we have and with the options given to students in order to make sure that our swim week is a successful venture for everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion on this? Okay. And then the Heartland update was deleted? Okay. So then we're at hearing of patrons. Did I skip another thing?
Yeah, 6.5.
6.5.
Actually, there's a 6.5. It's not on her agenda for some reason.
Oh.
Anyway. Actually, I put that on there, just hearing the frustration of several board members talk about not having time to discuss matters routinely. We're asking that, is it possible for the board to agree or approve special work sessions for each month? And if that's the case, we could go to the second Tuesday of the month for the board meeting, the fourth Tuesday of the month for work sessions. We can always set them for each month, and if we choose, if there's nothing actually that we're working on at the time, we can always cancel those, but just want to throw that out there if, as a discussion item for the board.
I think it's a good idea. Mr. Hensley suggested it and makes sense. Are others willing to go ahead and add these on our computer, our calendars? Are you willing to add work sessions onto your calendar?
Can we approve? I like the idea as well. I don't know if Tuesday night, it may be the best night, but can we, do we have to pick the dates?
You can do whatever you want to do.
Okay. So we could, is this a motion, Mark? Is this?
Yeah, although I'd say if you pick a date, please try to be consistent. It makes making the notices easier for me.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, it makes it easier to set your calendar too, if you know you got the second and the fourth Tuesday, or, you know, do we want them that far apart? Do we, you know, what's the board think? Do you want them closer together? You know, I kind of like the second and the fourth Tuesday. That works for me, but.
I would really appreciate it being a couple weeks apart just for preparation reasons.
I wondered if it would be conducive to board schedule to meet maybe in the morning, like a 7 to 8 o'clock, an hour-long work session. A lot of us have kiddos on sports teams, and that takes out, just a lot of that every Tuesday night, that or every other, I guess. But I don't know how that works.
That's not going to work for me.
Okay.
I leave
No
about
problem.
5:30 every morning for a different city in Indiana, so.
All right.
Tuesdays wouldn't work for me in the morning either. Tuesdays, Thursdays wouldn't.
Okay, but it doesn't sound like any morning works, right, for Mr. Hensley?
Not for me.
Yeah.
If you guys, I could maybe conference in or something like that, though.
No, I think we can find a time. So is there another suggestion other than the fourth Tuesday?
Is there a day that's better for anybody else in the evening?
Do we really need to set that now, or can we just agree that, I think it's critical. I don't know how we solve things as a group if we don't meet and talk about them. I mean, this is just goofy, so, let's just set the capacity at one day, maybe pick a day. If that doesn't work, then we should just make it, if we have to do AG or something on, just make it flexible where we could, if we don't need it, cancel it. I think it's smart just to reserve the capacity where we can actually work on some of these things.
Yeah, I think we need to, like I said, pick the second Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday or something. If we don't need it, we just cancel it. But, I mean, look how much trouble we've had trying to get everybody together a week away to put in a meeting. If we set it right now, you can mark your calendar for the whole year. I know some of you are already booked out 4 or 5 months, but Raju, is Tuesday a good day for you, or especially if it's going to be at 6 o'clock? Is it going to be at 6 o'clock now instead of at 5:30? Keep continuity?
Tuesday's not a good day for me, but I can make it work.
Well, to Mike's point, can we lock in that we want to do this and then give us some time to look at our calendars?
When do we need to set that date? Is there a time frame there so far ahead?
It's 2 days.
48 hours.
48 hours.
So we can set one for January if you want to now, and then discuss it even more there. It's just, I can do one
Absolutely.
notice at a time. It's not a big deal, but it's easier for us if we just do not one notice per meeting, but one notice altogether. But we can do it either way.
We do know on the 28th, which is the fourth Tuesday, Mr. Wanamaker is available to come and speak with the board on that date. I don't know if that works for everybody, but if we could just even do that date and then decide between now and then when you want the work sessions to be, we could change those up.
You said the evening of 28th?
I believe it's the 28th.
Yeah, that says
I don't
fourth
have it in
Tuesday.
front of me, I'm sorry.
Good.
Yeah, January 28th is the fourth Tuesday of the month, so 2 weeks from today.
I move that we set our work session for January 28th of this month, and
And then we can adjust if we need to from there. You could actually even
I'll
email
second.
me some dates, and then I'll look at them and try to figure out what's best for the month of February.
So right now, we're at January 28th at 6 o'clock for the next work session. And it is a work session, not a special meeting, right?
This work session is a type of special meeting, so, but yes.
So Roger, you made a motion and I second it. Are we voting on this? Or
Is it a vote? I thought you said it wasn't a vote. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just, I'd say go ahead and vote on it.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Shaw and a second by Mr. Hensley to set January 28th at 6 p.m. as a work session. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Okay, now we're at the hearing of patrons. So if you signed up to speak, I just would like to remind you that the comment process is that you are signed in to speak. If you would share your name prior to speaking and speak into the mic so that we can hear and have the record. You'll have an opportunity to speak for 2 minutes, and we ask for no applause. We also are asking for no repeat comments. Please be respectful in your tone and words. Disrespectful or derogatory comments regarding individuals will not be tolerated. You'll be asked to step away from the mic if you choose to insult, degrade, or harass others. Due to limited time and honoring all those who signed up to speak, please do not ask for a time extension or to use someone else's time. Do people just come up and if they want to speak, they come up, right? Okay, so it's not a certain order, it's just you can come up to either mic and speak.
I would encourage you to go ahead and stand behind one of the mics so we're in line, because we do have more in the meeting to get to. So if you would just, if you're wanting to speak and your name is on the list, please step up to a mic.
Good evening. Nate Gephardt. You spoke about Title IX, but to recap, there's still no federal law and there's still no state law that says you have to let transgenders use the bathroom of their choice. I understand you referred to case law. But this is Mr. France's legal analysis. And there are many, 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 many other lawyers out there. And we can get a second opinion. I just felt like the December 18th meeting was a little one-sided. And talk about Title IX. If you're allowing boys into the girls' bathroom or boys in the girls' locker room and vice versa, that should be a violation of Title IX. Because Title IX was put in place in 1972 to give girls and women the same opportunity as boys. That was the whole motive behind Title IX. So to actually, you're not having sex-separate bathrooms and providing sex-separate bathrooms if you're allowing the girls into the boys' bathroom. That to me is a violation of Title IX. Secondly, there's a DSM-5 handbook, a quick Google search, and you can see that clinicians and students learning psychiatric diagnosis, this is their go-to book. And gender dysphoria is listed as a mental disorder. Gender dysphoria is labeled as a mental disorder. So why are we as a community giving more rights to someone with a mental disorder? Why aren't we helping counseling these people? We need to love and accept people, but we can't just allow people to just to give them more rights when they have feelings that go against biological sex and reality and the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Miller. I don't know that it's much a comment. I just wanted to touch on I guess my question, I have a question. I would like to have some clarification from the policy committee, Mr. Markham, Ms. Translate, how this works. There's 4 of you collectively that get together. Are you bound by the same rules, Mr. France? Maybe you could answer that. As far as how often you can congregate and speak, I guess really what I'm after is I'm trying to get my head wrapped around how long something is going to take to get put in place other than just this practice. And when a policy, if hypothetically Mr. Hensley says, hey guys, this is what I came up with, does that need to be unanimously agreed upon within the committee before it gets represented to the board for their review? I would just like to know how that process works.
So we've got a stack of policies, right? And a policy is basically, it's really a low level of control, to be honest with you, because it's words on a piece of paper, but it's the best we got. So you write a policy, basically, people make laws, we write a policy to try to follow that law. So we've kind of got a stack that we've got a lot of work to do on policies. Seems like things keep popping up before we get the stack marked down. But what we do is we meet as a group. There's 4 of us. Bryce is also on the policy committee, and we look at these policies. We try to go through them and get them as close as possible, and then we put them out to the board. The process, again, like we talked about last time, there's a first reading, second reading, and then we approve. So you kind of see the process in work here. That's how we do. That's the policy procedure. So it takes a full board vote, to adopt a new policy. With that said, there's some things that are surfacing we don't even have policies for. So and to your point, we meet once a month. This meeting, that's a public meeting. The policy committee meets once a month. We cannot meet as a group just out of the blue. That's sunshine law or whatever you want to call it. More than 4 is a quorum, and that's a law that we can't do that. So that's
Committee could.
Yeah, committees meet, but we don't have, we have less than 3 people in each committee, right? So 3 or less.
To make it clear, the Facility and Finance Committee, we don't set any policy. The Policy Committee doesn't set any policy. They look at it, they come up with a proposal, and then it comes to the whole board. The reason for the separate committees is to allow less time in this meeting and more time in the facility or curriculum or policy committees to dig into stuff, do research, and come up with the best recommendation. We don't decide anything in those subcommittees, just to be clear.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
My name's Vernon Martin, and there's a couple of things on this situation that bothers me. Number one, y'all said it's a privacy issue that y'all did not notify the public, or that you can't notify the public. We don't want to know who it is, but we want to know that changes are being made and not the way this particular situation came up. It's not right to change everything for one when you've got the safety of 1,000 others out here to look at. I don't see that as being fair to the 1,000 when the one needs to change. We need to come up with something for the safety of all of us, because the wrong person is going to come up and have everything Mrs. Grimaud said. Have the doctors, have the parents, have the student. We're going to have a kid go into the wrong bathroom, the opposite bathroom, and be sexually attacked. And the lawyer is afraid that he's going to get sued now. What's going to happen when this happens, when this sexual assault happens? What's going to happen to the school? We're going to get sued. We need to fight where this country started from. This country started on a freedom of religion. We've lost it. And I think we, as a community of school, the community school needs to help get this back in line. It starts here. It
Thank you.
can't start everywhere.
Sir, I would, just a couple things, submit that as I research this, I'm finding that there's many legal experts as well as court decisions that say that yes, Title IX is law, but opposite sex facility use is not. That's totally a matter of interpretation. And I keep hearing that, well, we're just following Title IX. Title IX is law, but same or opposite sex facility use, everything I'm finding, it is not law. It's just an interpretation by some. Secondly, the two words I keep hearing tonight are safety and privacy. And I submit that the concern of many of us grandparents, parents, and citizens is exactly that, safety and privacy. And with this policy as it is, or this practice, whatever we want to term it, I still haven't heard the answer. What is to keep a sexual predator or a pedophile from using an opposite sex bathroom or shower or locker room facility and abusing that? As it stands now, how can we keep that from happening? Because we're saying that, no, if you identify as this, you can use it. Our concern is not so much about a first grade student or second grade student, whatever. Our concern about is the abuse of this practice or this policy by somebody that has evil intent. And it's a Pandora's box, the way I see it. Just, well, we can't, and I even heard that at the December 18th meeting, that if an older male comes into an after-school function or event and chooses to identify as a female, there's nothing can be done to keep him from going into the girls' restroom. That's asking for trouble.
you.
That's asking for a lawsuit.
That's not accurate, is it?
What's that?
Jake Longenecker.
Do you, do you want to ask, just a minute, do you want to ask Mark something?
Is that accurate? I mean, I don't know if you're talking, Pastor Morbitzer, you're talking about a student or an outside person. If a male comes in this school and goes in the child's restroom, I'd expect those guys with badges on them would be called, you know? If it's an outsider or something like that.
Any kind of public event. At the December 18th meeting, that question was brought up, and the answer was, yes, that could foreseeably happen.
Mr. France? Is that true, or is there more?
I recall the answer at the special meeting being that I had reviewed case law, and case law hadn't addressed that specific situation, but Title IX applies to those that receive and participate in the schooling, basically, the educational activities. So I don't think Title IX protects the random male, female, any adult that comes in for like the basketball games, sporting events. It applies to students, coaches, teachers.
Does the community schools then have something in place to keep that from happening? Because as it is now, well, the practice is someone who identifies as a female that is a male can use those facilities.
So, Pastor Morbitzer, I'm just trying to hold true to the rules for everybody. So if the board has questions, you know, like if the board has questions in response, but I was going to ask because your 2 minutes is up.
I sat down.
I know you did.
That's my fault. I just think that's
Yeah,
worthy of
it's
clarification. I don't want people leaving this meeting with misinformation and thinking we're letting people come in the door and go into restrooms with little girls and little boys, because we're not doing that. And if that happens, somebody better dial 911, would be my answer to you on that. Or the staff sitting here are dedicated to these students' safety and privacy. They're not going to let somebody, you know, that's why we lock the doors. We've got SRO officers here. I mean, that's unfathomable to me, to be honest with you. So I apologize about having you stand back up.
Oh, no, there's no
apologies. We're going to get this clear tonight, you know? That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, please no apologies. I wasn't trying to chastise anyone. I just was trying to keep it fair. So do you have more questions, board, more questions or things you want Mr. France to explain or response?
I'd really like a better answer to that question. I mean, is there some research you can do between now and the next meeting?
What a week. Yeah, I can look specifically on that, but I've looked.
Primarily is, can we write a rule that says no? If we have security at the basketball game, can we do that since we're open to the public? Anybody that pays admission could come in.
I can look at it again, yeah.
Thank you.
And I think Mr. Longenecker was.
I asked him if I could go.
Oh, okay, thank you. Go ahead and say your
Bobby
name.
Gephardt. In addition to that, when Nate spoke with Dr. Grimeau and Principal Chorus, when this all began, Mr. Hensley, he asked this question, and you probably know, he's probably already told you. He said, if a teacher who is a male transitions, becomes transgender over the summer, comes back, will he be allowed to use the bathroom with my little girl? And all they said was, I know, Nate, I know. It was the basis of the outrage at the beginning, is because there was we have 4 daughters.
Can I answer that? Again, I thought we've been real clear that anybody who is uncomfortable in the bathrooms, other accommodations we made for them.
What about other little girls?
Anyone who is uncomfortable in the bathrooms can have other accommodations. So if I understand that your 4 daughters may be worried, and they are welcome.
Are you worried about my 4 daughters?
I'm worried about my own daughter. And your 4 daughters, it's up to you to decide, and your children. If they are not comfortable in the bathrooms, they are welcome to use an alternate facility so that they are comfortable.
Right, so I'm saying still also to Mr. Hensley's rebuttal was there's still that opportunity for a male who has transitioned and has decided he is a female that he could use. From what was said,
But
So-
your daughter wouldn't be in there.
I know, but all these other little girls would be.
That's not for you to determine. That's for them and their parents to determine.
Right, that's for you as a board member to stand up and do what's right.
No, it's really not.
No, it is. That's why
We're
we
not,
voted
we
you
are
in.
not, we're not priests. We're not doctors. That's for the parents and the family to determine what is best for their family and their kids.
I don't believe that.
We are here to offer safe options for everybody.
I don't believe that was a safe option.
We're doing everything that we can to provide as many options so that everybody's comfortable, and that's all we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Little girls.
Jake Longenecker. I think we can all agree we want physical protection for our children, but amongst everybody here, who's willing to actually stand up for our children's hearts, minds, and innocence? I'm very disappointed in the board and the leadership of this school system. The fact that we're just going to do whatever we want. We're not going to inform the school board. We're not going to put this to a vote, let the community be involved, nothing. You guys obviously didn't learn the lesson from 2 years ago, that this is the community's school. The community owns the school. We make the decisions. If you guys can't make the decisions and can't make the right decisions, resign. I consider it funny how gender and sex are considered interchangeable in what the law says. But until we decide to start bringing up 160 plus different genders, sex and gender are not the same thing. Are we going to let everybody have their cake and eat it too? Are you guys going to stand up and fight when Planned Parenthood and numerous other agenda groups come in? They are trafficking our children's hearts. There is curriculum out there, and it's coming. Are you guys going to stand up to it? That curriculum coaches children on how to get an abortion without parental approval or parental consent or knowledge. It's coming. Are you guys going to be brave enough to stand up for it? Stand up against it? Because you don't seem brave enough right now.
Thank you.
I just had a couple things I wanted to say, though, on behalf of the issue of pedophiles just walking into our schools. Our school has a...
Just hold on a minute, okay? I'm just really sorry. I was really trying to follow the rules that we set, the process that we set in place.
Okay. My name's not on the list.
Yeah,
That's
so
fine.
we're just gonna
That's fine.
ask you to wait. Okay, thank you.
I'm on the list. My question is, if the Title IX determines sex, I mean, you can't discriminate against sex, does that only apply during school hours? Kind of back to Mr. Morbitzer's point, I'm just unclear, and I want to leave here clear tonight. Like, so you're saying if a transgender adult comes in during a public function, we can discriminate then and say no and call the police? Or, I mean, that's what I'm just trying to understand. I want to be completely clear on what is allowed and what's not.
It's more a question of who Title IX applies to. Okay. Title IX does not apply to everybody. So it applies, and it's anybody who's in an education program or activity, basically receiving federal financial assistance. So, I mean, Title IX doesn't apply to the private schools. That's why you can have Wabash College, that's all male. So it protects, like I said, students, teachers, coaches, faculty, the random adult that comes in.
Okay, so a transgender teacher then could go into the opposite bathroom, which is an adult. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. But the random adult who's never been here before, not connected in any way with the school,
So
could not-
school
we could say
employees-
you cannot use that restroom.
So adult school employees only? Am I understanding that right? As far as adults go?
I mean, it doesn't have to be an employee. It can be a coach who's not necessarily
Okay. A parent on a
teacher.
field trip?
I haven't seen anything that goes that far. Essentially, like a volunteer chaperone.
Right.
I haven't seen any case law on that, but I can't say definitely because I haven't seen case law saying it doesn't specifically apply to them either.
So what would the school's stand be on that then? Like if a parent volunteer is going into the school, because I do believe the administrators do need to know who they can and can't allow into a bathroom.
And part of what I do, I don't come up with every what if possibility.
Right.
I take it as it comes up.
But I do want to protect our administrators and our teachers too, because if they make the wrong call, and you guys said you can't inform the whole administration about a child that is, and I get that, it's providing their protection and privacy, but then how does a teacher know who they can call out? Let's say they see a boy entering in the bathroom. If I were a teacher, I'd be scared to say, hey, you can't go in because it'd be like the kid could say, well, you're discriminating against me. Because I don't know who's been given permission to go in and
Thank you.
into the bathroom.
I will look into that more for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I got one comment on that, Mark. There are private, this question, I think I know the answer. There are private schools that receive federal funding that are bound by Title IX. So it's not private schools aren't excluded from Title IX unless they don't accept federal funding.
Title IX comes into play once they start receiving federal funding.
Right.
Are there more questions? Or? I don't know who is.
I'm April White. Just a couple of quick comments. One, for practicality purposes, and I don't know that this is policy or that this could be, but as an adult entering a school building, particularly I think about the elementary school, if I have to go to the restroom, I'm inclined to use the staff bathroom, which is a single stall facility. I personally think it's a little weird to go into the children's restroom. That feels odd for an adult to go into a children's restroom. Not that it doesn't happen or can't happen, but that for me seems like an adult uses an adult restroom and the children use the children's restroom, and that kind of resolves the issue of if you have a teacher who is transgender or a parent who is transgender or anyone for that matter, an adult being a transgender entering that school building, that seems like it would resolve the issue. The other comment that I have about after school events or basketball games or whatever might happen in the evening, my question to you would be how would you know that somebody is transgender entering that facility? Because generally a transgender male appears male, and generally a transgender female appears female. So are you going to ask them to show themselves to clarify that? Because my guess is if a woman walks into the restroom, you're going to assume it is a woman. And so I really want you to think about what we're talking about and what we're asking ourselves, because how really are you going to know? Are you going to ask them to drop their pants so you can check it out? I don't think any of us are going to do that.
Chad Water. On after school, like basketball games and stuff, you're saying Title IX, but then on some things you've said Title VII. So would Title VII give the public, if they wanted to come in and use the opposite bathroom?
Title VII deals with employment.
Right.
Title VII is, I think there's some exceptions within it that exclude education activities, and so Title IX covers that gap.
Okay,
But
because
I don't
Go
think
ahead.
Title VII wouldn't apply to the random adult coming in for a basketball game.
Okay, well, you said earlier that Title VII played into the kids making the decision?
It comes into play because courts will look at how Title VII has been analyzed and how it analyzes Title IX, because both have on the basis of sex. Title VII has race, color, religion, national origin as well, but it also has on the basis of sex. So that's why.
But not for education, just for.
Yeah. So Title IX is the education side. Title VII covers employment. That's why the Harris Funeral Home case is brought under Title VII, because it's dealing with employment. There's no educational part in it, so there's no Title IX cause of action.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Chris Metzger. When I hear a board member speak specifically to parents about their role in helping their children and their family decide what it is they're comfortable using as a bathroom, what I hear when I listen to that as a grandparent is you dismiss the opportunity for other people to advocate for other students in the school system. So I just want to encourage you as a board to always be open to the community and their advocacy, because I don't have children in there. I was third generation, second generation. My kids were third generation. My grandkids are fourth generation in the school system. So I would just request that you really be open to the advocacy from people like me on behalf of those students in there, because those students that are in there will be current leaders in our country someday. So we all have a vested interest in that. So I just would encourage you to be open to advocacy from anyone in the community. Thanks.
Casey Eberly. I just have a question on kind of going back to the adult entering into the bathroom. I think what April proposed is a great idea in general, but Raju, you talked about, that's our job as a parent to pull our kids, but from what I understand from what Mr. France had said, that we're not allowed to know because of the privacy policy. Is that correct, what I'm understanding? So if we don't know, we don't have the opportunity to protect our children in that way. I'm just kind of bringing that up. And then my second question is, how do we, as a school, and I don't know how this works, how do we get curriculum? Like, where does it, I know we have a curriculum, right? You are? Okay. Does it come to you first and then you bring it, like if we get new curriculum, does it come to you first, then to the superintendent and then to the board, or how does that process work if we get new curriculum within our schools? I don't know. Sorry, if you don't answer, that's fine. I just wanted clarification.
I think we just need space to figure out who's gonna
Okay,
answer it.
that's fine.
Did you have anything else though?
No, that was my last question.
I just didn't want to cut you off.
No, that was it.
Dr. Grimaud, do you want to answer, or is there somebody better? Mrs. Janae?
Actually, I haven't been through that process yet here, so I'm just going to, do you want to speak with that on the mic and what the process has been?
In the past, curriculum has always had this cycle, and so like English language arts would be 1 year, math the next year. The DOE kind of got rid of that, but most corporations stick with that same cycle. And so each year there is a content that we look at, and we decide if we need to refresh our curriculum, and that becomes discussions with grade levels, with buildings, with the principal. So there's a large group of people. There have been parents in the past that have looked at curriculum as well. We actually have a curriculum instruction and assessment team now that was just developed when Dr. Grimaud came in, and we are using that team to kind of guide our initial look at curriculum. Anyone is welcome to look at the curriculum for any topic, so that would just be a matter of contacting either the teacher or the building level principal to do that. Did I answer your question? Right now, actually, for the past 2 months, I've been working on just getting pacing guides ready to put on our website, which I think Mr. Self is sort of revamping now. But our teachers have worked over the past year creating these new pacing guides. Those are available. I would think if you really wanted to dive into the curriculum, you'd want to talk to the actual teacher in that classroom. The pacing guides are more about what standards we're covering, what quarter they're being covered in, what mastery looks like, those kinds of things. So I don't know that it's going to answer the specific questions that you want, and because of copyright issues, we can't post that online. Anything else? Okay.
Any other comments from the board or questions from the board?
Well, there is one comment I'd like to make, and I talked about this a little earlier this evening, was we are in the process of, with the Finance and Facilities Committee at looking at floor-to-ceiling petitions and to put into schools to provide safety and security. So it's something that we're looking at, and we'll continue to gather information as we go. So I think you just need to be aware of that.
I guess, Austin Metzger, to that same point right there, when can a practice be halted then until such adequate things have been met? If it's not a policy and if it's just a practice, then when can a practice be removed until adequate conditions are met to meet both sides?
In this situation, because we're dealing with opinions of a court that say what a lot of people have considered to be adequate conditions, we can't put in place those conditions until renovations happen or some other thing happens, because even that's temporary.
That's my point. I mean, you're speaking of an opinion, so opinion is up to anybody at that point. So can we not have our own opinion that the situation we have right now, we do not have adequate facilities, so in turn the practice that's in place should not be happening until those improvements are made?
Well, the opinion I'm referencing has a lot more authority than I do. So
it's still opinion.
It's a judge's opinion, and if you want to argue a judge's opinion doesn't matter to any judge, I don't see that argument going well for anyone, for us. So
I just mean an opinion is up to interpretation. So is that not up to our interpretation of that opinion?
The opinion's pretty clear. We can't prevent that from happening without violating at least the court's interpretation of Title IX until, and again, that's why I kind of stress the opinions of the Harris Funeral Home case. Until the Supreme Court decides otherwise, we're stuck with the Seventh Circuit opinion, or the Supreme Court could leave it in place. So, but the Seventh Circuit opinion has the authority and controls what we do until the Supreme Court or the Seventh Circuit says otherwise.
Okay, so at that point, how can a practice be put in place upon an opinion, I guess, and without an actual vote by the board? I mean, to put just any practice in place.
Because it's federal case law, basically.
There were a couple other people who signed up but didn't speak, so just if you have something to say, we're going to move on with our meeting. If you did want to speak.
Hi, Katie Cumberland. I'm not really sure how to ask this, but if it's law, like if anything that comes through, if it's curriculum, no matter what, if it says it's law, are we just wasting our time? I mean, does it matter? Does it matter if we have a board? Does it matter that you have people here? Does it matter that I'm just sitting back there, I'm listening to all of it, and I'm going, I feel really hopeless. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we think, it doesn't matter what we feel, it doesn't matter our numbers, it doesn't matter that we sign anything. None of it matters. And so I guess my question is like, if a curriculum comes in and we don't like it and we have questions, does it matter? Because if it's law, it's law. At that point, why have a board? Because it's just going to go by what the lawyer says. So that's my question.
So what I think I hear you asking is, like what Mr. France has been speaking to has been about Title IX and how that's the case law surrounding that. But what I hear you asking is about curriculum that's coming.
Either or. I mean, it could be anything. If we come in here and there's several of us, I mean, obviously not as many tonight, but
Katie, it all matters, right? Everything, curriculum, it all matters. We vote in this country, right? I mean,
right,
it goes there.
Right.
But at the same point, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not on the Supreme Court. I don't make these laws, right? The best thing that this board can do is look at the situation, come up with an amicable solution that satisfies every one of you in this room, and most of all the kids. You know, and don't think I'm not concerned about this, right? I mean, when somebody's telling me a male could go in a restroom with young females, to me, that's like called exposure. There's a state statute about that, right? That was my point earlier. So it wouldn't be anybody checking anybody out. It would be, you know, that's against the law to expose yourself to minors, right? I mean, so that's got to be taken into consideration. But there's only what we can control is what we do in this school corporation, and that's what we're trying to do is come up with an amicable solution that basically mitigates everything you talked about. To me, we got astronauts going to Mars, right? What if they bring back a Martian, they want to go in MCS? I don't care, whatever solution we come up with, and especially if we spend money outside the classroom, right? I mean, that's the thing that really burns me. But if we do that, then we got to look at all differences and all people, and we got to mitigate that fact. You know, that's all we can do. I mean, there's law. I can't influence that, but what we can do is put our heads together here and come up with a solution. And then you know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to present that for you guys for approval. You know, that's my basis right now of what's in our control. Our sphere of control is basically we're looking at facilities, we're looking at policies, we're looking at everything we can. We can't rush to a rash decision. Everybody wants a decision like that, boom, and then you screw up is what happens. Problem solving takes time. You have to plan these things.
Right.
You know, and once we do, it's going to take a while. If that solution involves facilities, then it's going to take a while to get that done anyway, right? But we'll do this expeditiously as possible. I'm not happy with the timing either, you know.
So once you do come up with a solution, it does get presented to us? Is that what you said? Did I hear that right?
It's going to be presented to the board, and I would imagine, yes. I mean, you
like
pay
it's not
for
something
this
that we
school.
would vote on. It's just
it'll be
something that you
public,
guys
though.
would agree on, right?
It'll be a public meeting just like this one.
Yeah.
But we don't have a say, right?
Not a vote. You don't have a vote.
Well, I guess it would depend on how much money
We'll
it
have an
costs.
opportunity for comment.
Absolutely. So you pay for this school, all of you do, right?
Right. I just didn't know. I mean, honestly,
The
I'm
gentleman
not.
there made that clear,
I don't know how
you
it all
know?
works. Just really an honest question. I didn't know.
The facilities committee is going to meet with the architect. They don't have these plans laying in a file cabinet. I mean, they came out, they looked at our buildings, we took a tour. He's going to make a plan. He's coming back on the 28th. He's going to present the cost and what the options are. Okay, and then at that point, it'll get presented to the board, and they'll say, this is a workable solution, or this isn't a workable solution. Now, I'd like to jump to your other thing about the curriculum and ask one of these fine administrators here to answer your question, because my understanding is any parent has the right to review the curriculum taught here. Is that correct? So, I mean,
Yes.
you talked about two different things, so I want to make sure that we get both questions answered.
Okay.
We're working as expeditiously as we can
I
to
believe you.
ensure the safety and security and the privacy of every student in every building.
I
But
believe you.
that don't happen overnight.
Right. I mean, I understand.
Okay.
Like,
And
waiting
do
on
we answer your?
contractors sometimes is like watching
Okay.
paint dry. So, I mean, I get that. No, my going back is, but if it is law, is there any point in us having a, I mean, I know that you're saying we have a voice, but it's like, but do we? Because if, the state says, hey, we're going to push through this curriculum, do we really have a say? Kind of like, you're going back to Title IX,
and saying, well, it's not exactly, I don't even know all the what you said. I'm not that smart, so I'm sorry. I can't repeat what you said, but it's not law, but yet it's law, so therefore we have to abide by it. So again, I just want to know that my voice matters, that our voice matters, that we're not just wasting our time coming here, wasting your time, that it does matter. So I'm sure I'm way over my time, so I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
Andy Eberly. I just kind of have a general comment, I guess. When this issue arose, it was very shocking to me, and I understand this is public education. We have to abide by the laws, and I appreciate the efforts that have been taken to protect my kids. And at the end of the day, I just have to make the best decision for my kids. And for me, that was to withdraw my 2 elementary students. And I'm just going to read this. I'm sure you guys have all heard it, but I just share this. It says, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails." But there's one verse that I left out, and it's important because it all upholds on this. "Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth." We've been called haters, and I don't know why. I love my kids. I know you guys love my kids, and I've been encouraged, we're going to teach our kids to love. But you can do all those other things, patient, kind, not boasting, not self-seeking, always protecting, which I appreciate, always trusting, always hope, always persevere. But at the end of the day, if it does not delight in truth, then I have to make the decision, no matter how safe you make the environment, to pull my kids. Because at the end of the day, you're still affirming a behavior that, in my eyes, in God's eyes, whether you are a believer or not, is wrong. So I can't let my kids be exposed to that as well.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else? Okay. Superintendent comments.
I just want to thank the people that donated more than $7,000 worth of money to the school corporation this month. Really appreciative of all of that to help support our programs. Can't thank our donors enough, and we'll be able to keep a lot of our programs going because of those donations, so thank you. And that's all I have.
School board comments?
I'd like to make one last comment. Mr. Gephardt asked a question earlier this evening, and that question has been pretty common throughout emails and phone calls and stuff, and I just want to clarify something. That is the question of who hired or who was responsible for the bow and sitter lady that come. And it's really irrelevant who's responsible for that, because one of the things that we wanted to be was extremely transparent in what we presented. As a board member for many years, one of the things I get tired of being told is that we're not transparent, we don't listen, we have backdoor meetings, we don't tell the truth, we don't involve the community. So we decided, you know what, we're in a learning position here, and we're going to learn together with you. And so Dr. Grimeau asked her to come. They talked a little bit about what she was going to discuss, and like you were surprised as we were surprised. I took that as a learning moment. No, I didn't particularly agree with what she said at first, but I sat there and listened. But to think that we were trying to do something or pull something is the farthest thing from the truth. We're being transparent. We asked someone to come and speak, and they spoke what they wanted. We were not going to control the narrative. We're not going to control the agenda. We're not going to control what she said. We wanted to listen. So if that bothered people, then I'm sorry, but there was no ill intent in that. I also publicly want to say that I've gotten emails and questions and phone calls accusing of Dr. Gameau of promoting this agenda, telling us that she's pushing this agenda, this is what she wants to do, this is where they want to go with it. And I want to tell you, that is the farthest thing from the truth. She is doing what is right for the school corporation at this time. She's taking in information, she's learning from all people's about. She talks to school board members, she talks to different school superintendents every day, and we're trying to learn the best way to approach this situation that is safe for all students. We don't have the answers. We are trying to learn and make the best choices possible. No, we will not make everybody happy, but we are trying our darndest to do that. All we're asking is to keep an open mind, work with us, and hopefully we can come out with a good, positive position to move our corporation forward in a positive way. Believe me, when we say we all love your children, we all want what's best for them, and we want them all to be safe. With that, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Once again, I would just like the community to have patience. We want to get this right. And other than that, I just echo what Mr. Flack said. We're just trying to do what's right. You know, I understand the fear and the terror. We didn't create this. The people in Indianapolis and the people in Washington, D.C., if you're angry, write to them, call them. They created this. We got to figure out a way to deal with it, and believe me, we're all trying to do the same thing. I'm a dad of 2 Manchester graduates, and I got 5 grandkids that go here. I get it, and we are listening. Thanks for coming.
So we have different committees that are meeting, and I'm really grateful for the Facilities and Finance Committee because I think they meet way more than anybody else. And the Policy Committee, I think you're meeting early in the morning, and they're meeting way more than anybody else. And Mr. Espesette and we are on, I don't even know the name of it because we don't meet very often, Student and Staff Affairs Committee. And so we did meet this week, and did you want to give an update to the board?
Sure, yeah. So we are going through a kind of a mid-year evaluation process of Dr. Gameau using the Rise Up. Is that the platform?
Rise rubric.
Rise rubric, yes. So we solicited information from all the board members, as you know, and we met yesterday or 2 days ago to compile that information, and then we'll have a exec session, I believe, to gather more impact and feedback to help Dr. Gameau in her position.
So when will you be scheduling that executive session, board? I'm not quite sure when Bryce gets back, but Rick and I would really like to do that before the end of January if we can find some time, and it'll just be the board to review that and to process that. A lot of you had great suggestions on how to move forward with that, so there's nothing set. We just need to get together in order to talk, and we can do that in executive session because it's evaluation. So we'll have to find that time. Mr. France will probably need you there too. Any other board comments? All right. Then we are adjourned and then reconvening. So board, don't go anywhere because we have the Board of Finance meeting to follow.
We do a Board of Finance meeting beginning of every year.
Are you?
No, I'm standing up.
Oh, okay, but you're still here. Okay. All right. So then Jeremy or Dr. Grimaud or Mr. Markham, will you say something to get us started?
Well, first we need to elect the Board of Finance officers, a president and a secretary, so you will need to take some nominations for both of those.
I make the nomination that the board stays the same as what it was previously.
I would just note we should do each position individually like we did with the school board.
Okay.
Just take nominations.
So I need nominations for president.
Who was president last year?
I think we just did the same. I thought we did the same as.
We did.
Do you know, Mr. Turflinger? It wasn't just the same as the board officers.
President, not the secretary, and that's the finance. We sign any documents.
It's the signing.
So I'll make a motion to nominate you as president of the finance committee.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? Discussion. Those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Did you vote?
What am I voting on?
President
For
Board of Finance president.
Wait till everybody calms down so you can hear what you guys were saying, but so.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hensley, we can wait? Or did you not hear?
I just
So we're,
hear what you guys were talking about.
my apologies. So we started the Board of Finance meeting, and we need to do election of Board of Finance officers, and Mr. Turflinger said last year we just kept them the same as the board officers, and Mr. France said that we need to do them individually, and so we were just voting on the president of the Board of Finance.
Drew.
Who is that?
They did nominations, and they said, they nominated me. Do you have another nomination?
Bryce Benke.
Bryce Bedke. So we have nomination of Bryce Bedke. Do we have other nominations?
We're talking for president, right?
Yes.
And then we have to do a secretary, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. Then I'm going to close nominations. All those in favor of Bryce Bedke for president of Board of Finance? I'm sorry, guys. I didn't see hands. If you could do hands.
I think there's 3.
I thought this was a formality. I don't know.
Yep.
So do we have 2 nominations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So finish the vote.
Nominations for me, or I'm sorry, in favor of me for Board of Finance. And now we hang 3-3, and so we get to do it again, correct?
Correct.
So I'm going to open nominations for Board of Finance.
I nominate Ruth Ayers for president.
So nomination for me. Is there another nomination? Nominations are closed. All those in favor of me? Opposed? Abstained? All right. And then Board Secretary, I'm opening the floor for nominations.
Dave Turflinger.
Are there other nominations? All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm not going to vote by myself.
Well, we need a quorum. Do we have a quorum?
Okay.
Yeah. There's 5.
All right, and then
1 abstain.
opposed
What a Chinese family.
or abstain? So you're
Abstain. He's
abstaining?
Who?
You. Yes. He's
No, I
abstaining.
put my hand up.
Oh. So you voted for yourself.
I guess, yeah. That's what I need to
Okay,
do. I just
okay.
want to get done, get out of
We
here.
need to keep hands up for a while, guys. All right, 6-0. That's
Board
what I
of
said.
Finance review, summarize investments?
I'll be brief. Just to give you an update on our interest income from this last year, this would be through Crossroads Bank. We brought in $19,444.13. This is down $3,651.05 from last year. But part of that reason is because now we have the investment in Hoosier Fund, and that investment right now, we earned from October 15th when we first invested to December 31st, $7,837.61. So if you total those two up, we earned a combined $27,281.74 in 2019 in interest and investment money, which is actually up $4,186.56 from last year. The rate is still at 1.80% with the Hoosier Fund. So if you kind of calculate that out over this next year, roughly we'd be around $33,000 and just from the Hoosier Fund. But obviously we hope that rate will go up. Review of investment policy. This is something that we're going to come up with. We'll bring to the policy committee at some point. We'll work on an investment policy. We don't necessarily have one in place, but you did approve the ability to invest in the Hoosier Fund as a board. But we'll come up with some guidelines to that for the future. If something ever comes up, we'll have a policy, and we'll put that to the policy committee to bring to you.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I got a question. Are you keeping track of the other one to see what their rates are doing?
Yeah, they give us a monthly rate on it.
No, I'm talking about Indiana and Hoosier.
Oh, I haven't looked at the other one in a while, but I'll go back and see. And see if they're
diversification is what I'm looking at.
Sure.
We got over $2 million in that one.
Right.
It's like, maybe we need to go like this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we have currently $2,512,837 in the Hoosier Fund as of right now. So, yeah, but we'll take a look at that.
Take a look at it and kind of see.
Yes, definitely. The other thing that you had at your seat is colored pieces of paper stapled together. And what this is fiscal indicators, and this is from they call it DUAB, the Distressed Unit Appeal Board, and they publish this every year at the end of the year, and it just kind of gives you a breakdown of different financial information for our school system. And so you can see these are a lot of table charts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to email you this link as a board, because there are a lot of things that you can hover over these tables and you can click on it and get more information about the financials. Again, this is the 2018 financial information that they just released. So this is almost a year and a half ago. So that's just information for you to look through and see. Again, they'll release then the 2019 information. They're always about a year behind on this. So, but by law, we're required to give you some information on it. And this is some information. And again, I'll email that link to you if you want to dive deeper into it. Other than that, that is all I have.
I have one more comment before we close. I didn't realize they were here, but I see them sitting in the back. Thanks for all the extra effort, guys, and setting the room up. Good job.
Can we have a hearing of patrons? I'm sorry. For a hearing of patrons, does anybody want to speak to the Board of Finance meeting?
Sure. Come on, say something.
All right, then we're going to adjourn.